Now the moment you've all been waiting for.
I am Nate Riggle, and you are listening to The Way of the Bonfire. Hey there, before we dive into today's episode, I want to call out that this is part 2 of 5 of a connection challenge designed to help anyone listening take action on getting more strength and true connection back in their life and work. And that all has to start with the connection to yourself. So if you didn't listen to the last episode, which is part 1, I recommend you do that first so you have the foundation for the rest of the challenge. All right, quick follow-up on part 1 before we move to part 2. I gave that a few days ago to let you marinate on it and hopefully consider it for more than a few seconds. Anyone who actually does ask those questions of themselves and actively seek an honest answer from within, it's crazy what you find, even if you're pretty happy with how connected you are to yourself and how you feel about yourself. Regardless of what answers you came up with, there's always room for improvement. So remember that when it comes to connection, it's always a work in progress, a habit, a mindset that needs to be constantly checked on as a way of going about life. On the last episode, I think I used the word clinic, but this is not a one-time stop at the clinic to just like a yearly checkup, right? It should be an ongoing thing. What doesn't get watered and fed will not grow, and it'll shrivel up and eventually die. So don't lose that connection with yourself. Think about what those questions from self-connection brought up that could use some food and water or have not been recently tended to, and create at least 10 minutes a day to give them some attention. Maybe you don't quite catch how important this is, but at least think to yourself, what if this was the most important thing that I could be doing to set things right, to make sense of how to grow and how to have things improve in all these different areas? Would it be worth 10 minutes for that, to just even consider testing that out to see if 10 minutes would make the difference? 10 minutes a day. Like, we can all find 10 minutes to stop scrolling so much. All right. Now that you've taken the time to consciously seek to better connect with yourself and improve that relationship, you'll realize that you have lots of room for growth, as I said before. And since you care about yourself, you'll be eager to find more clarity and connection beyond what your own mind and your heart can give you, although they can do a lot. But we definitely shouldn't stop here, because then we just become isolated, right? The whole point of connection is to not be isolated. And you can do this next part really backwards, which I still mess it up all the time because I tend to let my curiosity off the leash. And I know I always am preaching curiosity on here, but you can let it off the leash a little too much. And the problem is that a dog that is just running around can get all sorts of lost, sniffing at every little thing and not keeping track of the trail. And like, if you know, like, that is totally what happens with some dogs. They'll be like, I just went down 12 rabbit holes and I chased all these animals in all these different directions. And now I have no idea where my owner is or where safety is or where the path is or how to get back to the car. So whether you realize it right now or not, I have never seen it be false to say that everyone needs a guide to keep them on track. So the Foothold of Connection Challenge Part 2 is to take stock of what guide or guides you have in your life to keep you on track. And I'm going to give you some background on why this is so high up the list. So this next part that I'm going to share is actually part of a talk that I heard from someone named Nick Clements that I really admire. So I asked for a copy of it and asked if I could quote from it, because he articulated this connection point in layman's terms a lot better than I could. And in his talk, he asked the question, what spirit should guide me as I move through life? Some might say that I don't need a spirit to guide me. And I would say that you don't really have that option. Some spirit guides you. It might be your stomach, guilty. You might be guided by the spirit of politics or the spirit of social media, maybe your favorite influencer or fantasy football team. The point is, some spirit is going to guide you. That's life. The question is, what is the highest spirit that could guide you? I know for myself, I can get easily distracted by the world, by the things of the world, both good and bad. There is a quote that I'd like to read from a famous actor who was once very addicted to drugs and all sorts of things that were taking him down a road that he thought he wanted, but eventually realized was killing him and his happiness. And he was kind of running out of runway there and that he wasn't going to be able to get it back. And he says, so this famous actor says, quote, "The implication I offer is that we are a species that worships. And if you do not access the divine, you will worship the mundial. You will worship the profane. You will worship your own identity. You will worship your belongings. You will worship the template laying before you by a culture that wants you, that gets you distracted and relatively dumb." End quote. So back to my question, what is the highest spirit that can guide you? In the Exodus story, the premise is that the highest spirit that can guide you is the spirit that objects to tyranny and strives for freedom. If you follow that spirit, then you believe that tyranny is wrong, even if you tyrannize yourself. We could probably do a whole podcast on just how you tyrannize yourself, and there is something virtuous about striving for freedom, especially if you're enslaved. So that's the end of kind of that portion from Nick. And I personally believe, this is what I've landed on, is that the ultimate guide is an almighty and all-knowing God who created us and loves us and values freedom so much, he let his only son suffer in an unimaginable way to give us that choice of freedom. So I choose that as my highest spirit that could guide me. And I believe that God's also sent lots of imperfect guides in the form of other humans and organizations because he wants his children to learn how to help each other along the way. But I would be a hypocrite if I tried to force that belief or choice on you or anyone, since I believe that the spirit that guides me wants to force no one and objects to that concept. You see, I honor your freedom, whatever you land on here, but I strongly recommend you do the work to actively seek and find the best guides to help you stay pointed in the right direction. So it's not some other distraction or randomness or force deciding for you that gives you the illusion of freedom because of its mastery of your human psychology, but does not have your best interest as a top priority. So the challenge for Foothold Connection number 2 is ask yourself, what guides do you have that you're following? And how is that working for you? If it's not taking you to places that are helping you, then ask yourself, what better options are out there? And what is one small thing I could do to get connected to a better guide who can see things from a better perspective than mine? So in review, so far the footholds of connection are: Part 1, how is my connection with myself? Part 2, what connections are my guides? Go get 'em. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. I love the chance to make your day better in some way, whether that ends up being just a quick reset that you needed to change things up, or even just a laugh or some fresh perspective. If you're getting value out of it, can you please do me a favor and share it with someone else? Because as more people find and listen to the show, I'm able to bring more good stuff more often. It is the fuel to the bonfire. Also, I'd love to hear your feedback and any thoughts or ideas or questions you have so we can be more connected and make the show even better with your input and your inspiration. The quickest way to do that is to send a message to my Instagram handle at WayOfTheBonfire, which is also included in the show notes. And if you just want to avoid accidentally scrolling on social media, you can send me an email at nate@wayofthebonfire.com. And you know it, but make sure you click that follow button so you can catch new episodes as soon as they're available. Keep tending the bonfire, and we'll see you on the next one.